Creating your backlog. During this section, I'll be covering the initial creation of your backlog within Visual Studio Team Services and also Team Foundation Server. Let's explore the Microsoft Application Lifecycle Management products. This comes in two flavors, the Team Foundation Server on-premise and the cloud version Visual Studio Team Services. It's worth noting the latest version of Team Foundation Server 2018, otherwise known as TFS, now discontinues support for SharePoint and lab management. The Visual Studio Team Services version has quarterly updates. So let's have a look at 2018. So the big changes that have happened in 2018 is they've taken advantage of some of the preemptive solution and now supports SQL Server 2017, which, as you can see, supports machine learning services in database for both R and Python. It's worth mentioning that the 2018 version requires 2017, and you need to remember to install the full text and search test capabilities to do this installation correctly and to enable SSRS. This additional preemptive solutions for the Community Edition can also be enabled while you're doing this installation. Currently, Azure version does not support this on Team Foundation Server, so let's explore Visual Studio Team Services. This is available online, it's free, up to a number of seats, or you can complement this with your MSDN licensing. For those guys who aren't familiar with Visual Studio 2017, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the various versions that you can download. The first is the Visual Studio Enterprise, which is the top subscription and includes the load testing abilities, and it also supports the high-end capabilities. The next version of Visual Studio Professional, you can actually download this without an MSDN subscription. It's also worth mentioning the Test Professional Edition, which is aimed at testers and IT professionals. It includes the Microsoft Test Manager suite. Also, what you'll be worth mentioning is that Visual Studio Community will enable everything you need to do throughout this course. If you need more information, I recommend looking at the compare in the bottom right-hand side. And also worth mentioning the Visual Studio Code capability, which works on both Mac and PC. Now we've covered off the prerequisites, we can move on to the core topics. Backlog management. This is a critical component between development and operations ops journey that allows you to start with a planning capability where you start a project, plan and track that requirement throughout the delivery, and you may have tasks and work items, and you want to be able to check these as you go through your solution delivery lifecycle. So let's have a look at the planning component. When it comes to Visual Studio Team Services and Team Foundation Server, the backlog is the core and it's the heart of the product. And what we're going to be doing is managing these tasks that feed in to the development lifecycle. So let's go and explore them in both versions. As you can worth mentioning, and we'll go into a lot more detail on this in later chapters, is around these business process templates which are enabled by default. The three core templates are Agile, Scrum, CMMI, which is the Capability Maturity Model Index. And as you can see, there's more information around source at the bottom corner around choosing your process. We'll also, in the last chapter, talk about how you can customize your process and take and inherit one of these templates and customize them to work for your organizational style of working. Okay, start with a new project on the on-premise Team Foundation Server. So I'm going to go and name it after one of the process templates, in this case Agile. And then the next stage, I'm going to choose version control. It's worth mentioning that some capabilities Git, and the third volume is actually going to cover Git in a lot more detail. But it's worth mentioning, we've already covered some of these process templates off, but we're going to select one of these to demonstrate how they differ. So we're going to start off with Agile, and then I'm just going to click Create. While this is sending off and making those requests to build that new project, which will be stored in my SQL, my SQL database, which I've configured with or without preemptive analysis. So what I'm going to show you another way of being able to create a project. So this time I'm going to show you how to create it using Visual Studio IDE, the Integrated Development Environment. So as you can see, I'm running Visual Studio 2017 Enterprise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to my project, and it's the same Team Foundation server. And what I'm going to do is I want to create a new project. So all I need to do is go to Projects and Teams, click New Team Project, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but this time I'm going to call it Scrum. And then put a quick description in, click Next, and then I'm going to pick the Scrum template. Obviously you can get more information as well from the process templates. I'm going to click same version control system, the TFVC, the distributed version control system. And now I'm using Git. It will create this in the same way. It's downloading the process template. Unless you'd customize this, this will be the default process template. And what I'm going to do is while that's running, I'm going to run to the web version and go straight into the one that I was previously created, which was the Agile process template. And as you can see, there's the backlog has been created. I can click features, which could be renamed. In later versions, I'll show you how to do this. The other project has been created, and now I could actually connect in my Git if I needed to. And I can manage this, if need be, directly the on-premise and the Team Foundation server versions, which allows me to have as much flexibility. And I'm going to try and do the same thing. This time I'm going to do it using the Visual Studio Team Services Edition. So I'm going to go in and type in my project name, and to finish off the series I'm going to do the CMMI Capability Maturity Model Index project, select that work item process template, and then whilst that's creating I'm going to go through in some more detail about managing these process templates. They can be changed at any time, so it's worth mentioning if you choose CMMI and then decide you'd like to go to Agile, you can swap back and change anytime. However, once you've got your customizations, you really want to make sure that you test that before migrating. So I'm going to go back in to the work items as we previously saw. But what's different here is you can see there's a star, there's some previewer features that comes out quarterly, which you won't be able to see in the Visual Studio Team Services Edition, but not in the Team Foundation Server Edition as of yet. However, those features will be released on a quarterly basis. So congratulations, we've completed this module around creating a new project and associated backlog on both on Visual Studio Online Team Services and Team Foundation Server 2018. So let's quickly summarize what we're doing. We've done the first component around backup, feeding into development. We've created a backlog. We've also been part of the Agile planning capabilities. We've visualized that backlog so that we can see it, and it's also we've been able to empower the teams to actually all be able to access this to do collaboration between the development and the operations component. And we've shown the flexibility of using different methodologies such as Agile, Scrum, and CMMI, and how you can create your first project. In the next video, we're going to look at how to visualize this using Storyboards.